Hello, everybody. My name is Dan Tomaszewski with Everything MSP. I'd like to welcome you to today's Dial in Your Process and Drive Up Your Sales webinar. With us today, I have Alex Farling. Alex has been the owner of Delaware Micro, which is an MSP for the last 16 years. Now, as an owner, he has struggled to get data out of his tool set, so he co-founded Lifecycle Insights as a way to automate the QBR process. Now, I met Alex and we had many conversations using asset management, risk assessment, in a way to have real strategic conversations with clients during business reviews. And we've talked about how those client conversations can provide impact and value to our clients and drive new business for an MSP. As MSPs are looking to grow their business or refine their processes to increase profits, I think you'll appreciate hearing about how dialing in your process can help drive your sales. Now, during the presentation today, if you have any questions, please go ahead and send them via chat. Additionally, at the end of our presentation, we will open it up for any questions. With that being said, let's jump right into it. I'm going to turn it over to Alex. And without any further ado, here's Alex.
Well, thanks for the intro. This is us, Lifecycle Insights. Like Dan said, we co-founded Lifecycle Insights because getting data for our QBRs for our customers was just miserable. We needed better, faster insights into our data. We just weren't able to get fast access to what lived in our PSA or our RMM or in IT glue. But it wasn't just for me. The big thing was my salespeople didn't know where their biggest opportunities were. Account managers had no idea where their biggest risks were. We really had all this data that our systems collected, but no access to any of it at our fingertips. So that leads me to ask kind of the question, are any of you guys kind of feeling the same way? Like, I've really mastered delivering the technology. I know what my proven product is, but I'm struggling to get my customers to the table to talk about the value that we bring. I'm really struggling to show customers the value of my MSP. Just about every week we see a conversation on Facebook or in Slack or in one of these places saying, how do you get your customers to understand what you do and to appreciate you or to see value in what you do? I feel like I need to send them all these reports just so they can see I apply patches and do all these things so that they'll be willing to pay the bill because we've got their network running smoother and smoother and we send them fewer and fewer service tickets. And lastly, are you struggling to dial in and build a real sales process? In my MSP, over the years, we've done everything from sending folks out to Chartech to hiring a Sandler sales trainer, and none of it really worked. It's really easy to go sit in a room and listen to Alex Rogers speak, but not many of us can deliver a sales pitch the way that he does. So what we realized was that MSPs, while we had all these fancy and amazing technical tools, we lacked the sales tools and the sales process. We lacked everything there was in taking the knowledge that we had and delivering it to our clients. And having worked in sales for companies like Verizon Wireless, who have incredibly well-defined sales processes, there was a stark difference when we came to the MSP space. But one thing I'd like to tell you today before we get started is that you have something about you that really plays to how you deliver your sales pitch. Don't feel like you need to deliver your sales pitch like the last sales trainer that you listened to. Alex Rogers is a perfect example. He does a great sales pitch. Not many of us can present like Alex Rogers. So take the tools, take what you learned today, and find a way to present it that's authentic to you. The minute you try and make sales not authentic to you, you lose the piece of sales that makes it consultative selling instead of actual pushy sales. And it's what really builds the value with your customer. So what I've just thrown up on the page is something that's familiar to everybody who's worked in IT for any length of time. It's the continuous process improvement model or some sort of that framework that we've all seen used for cybersecurity or risk assessment. Over the next hour, we're going to take this model and we're going to show how to use it to solve the problems we just talked about, whether that's in how to deliver a consistent and valued QBR to your client, or whether it's how to turn your sales process for your existing clients into something that keeps them wanting to come back to the table, or whether it just helps you align your clients with your proven process. Some people like to say stack alignment. But we want to continue to drive more sales through our current client base to get them using more and more of our preferred stack. And then we're also going to, as a little bonus, show you how to use the same standard strategy that you're using for your quarterly business review as a sales tool to close new clients, because closing a prospect is really not very much different than doing a QBR for an existing customer. So as Dan said, along the way, if you got questions, comments, whatever, don't hesitate to dive in and chat. But for now, let's take the first step. The first thing that we need to focus on is discovery. Okay, there's data collection. With an existing customer, when we're prepping for a QBR, we already have a ton of data. You have the stuff that your RMM has collected. Your PSA probably has a list of users and maybe some information about the state of certain network systems. There could be piles of data other places, but we have what I like to say is the things that are known. And we know where this data lives. Unfortunately, in a lot of cases, it's pretty scattered. Some of it lives in your RMM, some of it in your PSA. Some of it's maybe in spreadsheets. I've heard folks using OneNote and Evernote and IT Glue. An unfortunately large amount of this data is probably just stuffed into the VCIO's head or in the head of the technician who works this customer the most often. One of the values that we bring to our customers is our ability to collect and correlate this data and then put it together in a fashion that really brings value to the customer. So without correlating this data and turning it into something, we really don't have a lot of value to the customer, which is where having some sort of an assessment module and being able to show them what risk and exposure looks like is valuable. So when you're building this assessment, we're taking what we know about our customer, we're evaluating it. We're not just dumping out a spreadsheet, but we're taking that data and attaching it to risk or to pain that the customer's experiencing, and then we're putting it in a report. This assessment, you guys may have been doing some of this yourselves. I know some of you fairly well, and I know that you have. You've been doing some informal assessments of your clients and their ability to work from home with COVID. This isn't very different, but what we want to talk about is formalizing the process, because if you formalize the process, it means that I'm doing the same process, the same way as my brand new, been on the job 6 weeks, director of client success, as is my account manager who's been doing this process for 5 or 6 years. So we want to make sure that across the organization we have some standardization so that we're all delivering the same customer experience no matter who's doing the job. Your risk assessments are important to you for many reasons. We need to talk about where our clients actually align for our best practices. Like what clients are actually meeting our goals, and you'll see those in green. What clients are way off of our goals, and you'll see them in red. The other thing that we're looking at is how many of our products a particular client has adopted. Do we have a client that is maybe only using 25% of our stack, or do we have a client that's using 95% of our stack and is really buying into what we tell them that they need to do? And last but not least, we want to talk about procedures and policies. We always hear some of these dark web vendors talking about the human firewall. If we don't have policy and procedure in place at our clients, then the human firewall doesn't even know what correct looks like. So we need to make sure as well that we have a section on policy and procedure, and that we're telling our clients about the types of policies we think that they need to have to run a safe business in technology today. One of the big things that we need to make sure we're doing with our assessment is taking a complex risk scenario and breaking it down and presenting it in simple, clear, and executive-friendly language. So we want to make sure that we're using something easy. I prefer this red, yellow, green scheme. But basically, we're taking little to no technical significance in the ranking of these particular items in an assessment. If you're struggling to get client engagement, this gamification really, really helps. You know, a lot of us know each other through chatting on Facebook or on Discord. I find it ironic that a bunch of C-level executives from IT companies are hanging out in a Discord channel where people are notoriously known for streaming their video games and hanging out. But I also find that the same kind of people that are out here being competitive and playing video games are the kind of people that are running companies. And your CEOs and your CFOs and your CTOs at these companies that we work for, they are competitive people. That's why they win at business. So when you put red in front of them, they see this as a challenge. When you put a low score in front of them, they will see this as a challenge and they will work to improve it. It's human nature, and we need to not let nerdy details get in the way of them fighting their human nature. One piece that we like to utilize in our QBR process is an agenda. And I use the agenda at this stage because once we have the report built, it's time to send over the agenda to the customer and say, hey, these are the things that I want to talk to you about. This is the reason that I want to talk to you. And we're going to keep this really non-technical, right? We're going to talk about just some carryover items, some things we did last time, what's changing in your business and what's changing in the world. We're going to give them a pretty straightforward about, and then we're going to ask them for their feedback so that we can talk about things that are of significance to them. But we want to make sure that this agenda says, Mr. Customer, this is strategic. This is not about technical stuff that you don't care about. We're doing our job on the back end. We're keeping you safe, but we need to talk about these other things. And once they've committed to meet with us, we actually have a client reporting session where we actually bring them the QBR and present it. At this point, we're doing a technology risk assessment as technology directly impacts business operations. So you want to take a problem that is either a pain for the client or that is a technology risk for the client and show how it could impact the business. Does this lead to lost data? Does this lead to lost productivity, slow computers? Does it lead to increased downtime or just the PR nightmare of a big data breach? We had a prospect we were working with just in the last week that mentioned to us that he's doing a really interesting presentation to some of his clients by saying, hey, if these computers that are more than 5 years old cost you 10 minutes a month for each of your employees, or I'm sorry, 10 minutes a week for each of your employees, at 52 weeks a year at minimum wage, these computers would cost you this many dollars throughout the life of your business. I thought it was a really interesting way to go to take that performance and productivity piece and really tie it to a business risk or a business need. And those are the kind of things that we want to be talking about strategically at this level. So when we bring this assessment, we're going to be bringing a pile of reports to the client. Beware, if you have a point of contact on site who's really technical, who's really significantly maybe a real VCIO and we're just doing supplemental IT, make sure that we're not using this opportunity to sit in front of them to get down in the weeds and talk technical. It's really tempting, but I like to call this the $800 room. You're getting together C-level executives, department heads, the head of finance, maybe even a consultant. And at one of my clients, we sat down and looked around the room and said, in this room, we have salaries that if we take a 90-minute meeting, salary plus benefits for all these people is going to cost about $800. We need to deliver $800 worth of value to have this meeting today and to have them in the future. And what we found is that if we really do deliver that level of value, clients keep coming back. What they don't come back for is technical jargon. They don't care about backup stats. They just assume you've got backups covered. They don't want to see your CSAT results. They filled them out. They know what the CSAT results are. They know whether or not they're happy with you. They don't want to see the results of your last virus scan or the number of malicious emails that you blocked. These folks really want to see a strategy that speaks to the executive levels and the decision makers in the room. So we want to be talking high level here. Once we've made our presentation, once we've shown them the gaps in their current environment, we want to make sure that we start to discuss remediation. Now, remediation is important because the client should have some insight here. There are things in the business that we're going to flag as acceptable risks. We're going to say, Mr. Client, not having 2 internet connections puts you at high risk for downtime. You're on a cable provider and they're down 5 days a year. You're going to have problems. And the client may say, you know what, we can live with that. That's not important to me. So we need to start to align these technical risks with pain points in the client's business. We should be looking strategically at delivering solutions that fix the pain that's most important to that client. So as we prioritize our projects in accordance with the potential business aspects, we should be starting to put dollar values into quarters, into time periods, so that we can start to resolve these things. By using this sort of a consultative sales approach, we've seen MSPs drive tens of thousands of dollars in revenue every quarter. Some who are really killing it are driving tens of thousands every month. Without being high pressure sales, you don't have to be a sales guy to do this. You can do this as a consultant, which is what all of us really like to see ourselves as. And William's on the call today. He gave me a great video, referral, if you will, as he started using the platform. He was able to get out using just this technique, turning red to green, and sell over $100,000 worth of projects in about a month, just showing his clients what he could do to get the red out. So it kind of stands behind the fact that these are competitive folks that we work with. And the last thing that we want to do is verify improvement. Nobody likes to spend money and not feel like they got their money's worth. So MSPs are always telling us they struggle to get their clients to the table. They struggle to get folks to see their value. What we need to show is improvement over time. Our PSA systems don't give us the ability to do that. None of the rest of the tools that we have really give us the ability to do that. So you need some sort of a metric to show improvement over time. And this is the difference between a baseline assessment and a comparison assessment. The ability to show your client that after following your proven process, they're safer, their network is more reliable, their people are more productive than they used to be, will speak volumes to whether or not they come back to the table for the next assessment. One of the things that we always like to do at the end of our assessment, because this really is the end of the QBR cycle, one of the things we like to do at the end of the assessment is sit down with the client and ask them, did we deliver value here today in this meeting? If they say yes, we ask them when they feel like would be the right time to circle back to do it again, 3 months, 6 months, a year, and we kind of make a recommendation based on knowing their business. If they tell us no, that we didn't deliver value, this is our biggest red flag. And the question that should follow that is, Mr. Customer, what could I have done better or different to deliver you more value today? Right? We want to get our clients to the table. We want to deliver this money to the bottom line in projects, and we're not doing that if our customer journey doesn't deliver value to our customer. As we move forward, we can take the same things that I just talked about and show it as a sales process. Everything up to this point, this is your QBR process. But now what happens when you get a random phone call, or you get marketing to deliver you a new lead, or one of your customers shows you a referral and you need to go out and meet with a new prospect? Well, guess what? Prospecting is only very, very, very slightly different than what you should already be doing for a QBR. In prospecting, we still need to identify the known. Now, we don't have as much backstory here. We have a lot of unknowns when we walk in the door. But what we do have is the ability to sit down with the customer and do what I like to call the human discovery. And a lot of this is stolen straight from Chartech. These guys do a great job of teaching you how to do this. And like I said, we didn't invent some of this process. We've begged, borrowed, and stolen from the folks who are doing things right. And I would encourage you guys to do it too, and build something that works for you. But their discovery process includes meeting with multiple people at the client site, even down to the department heads or even employees in departments. They can take a full day at a good sized client, just going around and meeting with people and discovering what their pain is with their current technology solution. We really want to get to the pain. We really want to get to what hurts. At the same time, we're going to be doing a technical discovery. Some of you guys have Network Detective, others are using different tools, but we all have some kind of a tool where we can go in and scan the network. We can learn all kinds of information. How old are the computers? What operating systems do they run? Do they have a real firewall in place? We'll bring a technician in and do all of that. Once we've completed the human discovery and the technical discovery, before we leave, our salesperson has one job, and that is to get some bracketing around the budget. If you walk away without a budget in this step, I guarantee you your opportunity to close this customer will go down about 50%. The verbiage I like to use with my clients is, look, Mr. Prospect, we're all in this as a business. I understand that you've got some questions and some concerns here, but in my experience, I've seen a lot of customers in the same shoes as you. Some about your size and some maybe even in your industry. What I've seen in the past is that a customer your size and in your industry can spend $2,500 to $3,500 a month to remediate some of the pain that you're feeling today. I need to know straight up, does this hurt bad enough for you to be willing to spend $2,500 to $3,500 a month to fix these problems? Or if I come back to you with a number like that, are you going to throw me out on my ear? This is an important question to ask, and you have to find a way to ask it that works for you. I can say it a little jokingly because I've got a little bit of self-deprecating humor in my personality, but find a way to say it yourself. Walk out with a bracketed number. And that's not a Chartech thing, that's a Sandler sales thing, but it works fantastically, and we'll circle back to it in a few minutes. Once we get into the assessment, we move along very similar to how we did for a QBR. The learned information, the stuff that we know about the client, is very similar now. But we want to do the same thing. We want to engage our technical team and discuss how the results from that technical piece are going to apply to the human assessment. So we're going to compare notes. Sally in accounting says it takes too long to get her monthly invoicing done. Well, the technical team says that her computer's 7 years old and doesn't have enough memory in it. So we're going to tie some things together and prepare our assessment. The assessment looks very similar to the assessment that we're developing for a client who's got a QBR. It's high level, it's non-technical, it's red, yellow, green. We're playing the same game here. Nobody likes red, so let's work with our prospect to get the red out. We're basing all of this on the facts collected in the technical assessment and the pain that we found in the human assessment. People buy on pain, we need to remember that. So align the pain with the risk and the exposure and put products and projects with each piece of this. When we go back to the client, we're going to want to make sure that we have a project along with everything that's red that aligns them with your proven process and that the total sum of all of this falls within your budgeted number. Now you're still going to go to them and say, hey, we have an onboarding cost, right? Our onboarding cost doesn't fall into the budget, but we do need to let them know that, that we can do this monthly in the budget that they're at. Now we go back to the client and we meet with them and we give them the same type of a presentation that we did with a QBR. Now we might have a lot less detail. You might not take the time to put together an asset list that's as complete as one that your RMM tool created for your managed customers. But you are going to have some level of detail that says, hey, you know what, we identified a couple computers that are really old. We identified a firewall that doesn't meet our standards. We identified some of these things. But this is not just a quote, and it's not just a proposal, right? We're bringing to the table a glimpse of what it looks like for an MSP to or for a customer to work with my MSP. This is the start of the customer journey, and it's something that I would encourage all of you to kind of examine in your MSP, really do some self-inspection to see what it looks like for your customer from their first interaction with you on sales through to year 3 or year 4 of having been through your QBR process. And have we improved them at every step? And have we continued to deliver a consistent approach to continued improvement? If you're doing that for your clients, you can speak very honestly at your sales proposal and say, Mr. Customer, or Mr. Prospect, if you were a customer of mine, we would meet like this twice a year and we would have these conversations. And as the world changes and as COVID-19 hits, we would be able to give you guidance and remediation as the world changes to make sure that we're keeping you up with the best practices. We're not just going to come in here and lay this blanket of my services over top of your solutions and call it done. This is going to be a relationship and we're going to be coming back. We're establishing early and often that this is something that QBRs are something that we're going to be doing with our clients. The remediation step is no different. We go right back to what we did in the QBR process. We're going to get information from the client. We're going to talk about things that they find to be acceptable risk and things that they are really, really sensitive to. So they may find it, I have a plumbing company at my MSP that doesn't care if they lose all their customer data. They said it's really not anything but street addresses. We don't care. But they are really concerned over uptime because they have 27 trucks on the road, and if they can't be working, they have a real problem. If the back office, the 4 girls in the back office are down, they have a real problem. So we want to align our fix with the customer's concerns, and we want to align it with their pain because customers buy on pain. We want to know that when we bring them the budget and we say, this is what it's going to cost you to onboard with us, but it's going to resolve your pain. We want to go to them and say, Mr. Customer, I can confidently tell you that I can take you from where you are today to an environment that's more secure, more stable, and more reliable. We can get some of the red off these reports. We can get things cleaned up. It won't hurt as bad. But to onboard with us, this is what it's going to cost you up front, and this is what it's going to cost you ongoing every month. Then we get into the final step, which is verification. Verification is a little funny when we haven't done any work for them and they're not even a customer. You might think that that doesn't fit, but it really does. This is where the assessment gets super powerful. We deliver the first assessment and we show the customer where they live today. Then we deliver the assessment as if we had already remediated their pain points. We're going to say, Mr. Customer, now imagine that I've already brought my solution in here. We've already done all the things that I've talked about in this report. This is what your assessment would look like 6 weeks from now after we've correctly onboarded you and resolved your problems. This is a comparison assessment. And it's okay at this point to only bring the first page of the comparison assessment because we're going to hold 2 pages up side by side. We're going to, Mr. Customer, you see this page here? Do you remember how bad it hurt when Sally was down in accounting and couldn't bill anybody? Well, over here, we've fixed that. And do you remember how bad this thing over here was? Do you remember how bad it was when your internet connection went down and you couldn't work for 3 days? Well, over here, we've fixed that. And then we're going to circle back to that budget. Customer, we've just talked about some things that were uncomfortable for you for some times when the business really wasn't at its best. You told me in my first visit that if I could solve these problems for you between $2,500 and $3,500 a month, we'd be able to do some business together. And I think I've shown you today pretty well how we can do that. Is there any reason with what you see here in front of you today that we can't do business together? And that's as hard as your sales pitch really needs to be. I will tell you, if you follow these steps and you do them consistently, you will improve your sales process. You'll improve your close rates. You'll improve your business process. So what can we walk away with today? It's pretty straightforward. We get our customers to the table by not leading with technology jargon, by keeping it simple, by keeping it slightly gamified, red, yellow, green, scores, and keep it easy. We show the customers the value of our MSP as we continue the cycle of improvement with them. We continue to remind them that they've improved over time and things are not what they used to be. And we build a real sales process and a QBR process that really unleashes us to deliver on a real sales value. We can really do high-level sales returns without having to do a pushy car sale. So at this point, I guess I'd like to ask you guys the question, but if you don't have one already, what's stopping you guys from deploying a strategic sales process like this in your business? And you can go ahead and answer in chat, but we thought we'd kind of talk through some of these if you guys have questions or concerns. It's a good time to do so.
So put in your answers in chat for 1, you can't get the data, it takes too long, your process is too manual and delivers inconsistent results. 3, my customers don't see value in the QBRs, or something else. Is there something else that keeps you from deploying a strategic selling process like that? Or are you already delivering one exactly like that? In which case, great, share some tips. What numbers would you put in there? You can choose more than 1. 5 could be all of the above. That's a fair answer. Not a real need a real process to streamline. Also adapt to clients who do not meet with BQBR, for example, government contracts. 2 and 3, too manual. Don't have a formal process for QBRs, just kind of winging it, and we're not good at it.
So for those of you that are just winging it and don't really have a formal process, I think it's fair to say this might be the biggest thing you can do to impact your sales, especially in the post-COVID world, where new prospects are either a dime a dozen for some folks or just non-existent for others. And for those who aren't getting hit up with a lot of new prospects and aren't out there trying to be pushy salespeople in a time when everybody's really sensitive to money, it's a really good opportunity to go get in front of your existing clients, deliver some value that will solidify your relationship with them, improve your retention quality, and maybe even sell some additional projects into your existing customer base. You know, this is one of those things where just getting out and getting in front of your customers. Also, I mentioned that question that we ask at the end, which is, Mr. Customer, you know, did I deliver value to you today? If they say yes, it's really easy to say, well, just like you, Mr. Customer, I own a business and I'm in sales. Is there anybody who you know who you might think would see similar value in their business to what I did for you today? It's a really easy, soft way to ask for a referral, being that you just got them to tell you how much value you delivered to them that day. For those of you who aren't, oh, sorry, Marnie, go ahead.
Well, no, you go, and then I'll ask you.
Well, I was going to say, for those of you who feel like your customers don't see value in QBRs, I would say I'd love to have a conversation with you about what you're doing. In my experience, lack of value from the customer really stems from either an inconsistent presentation, right? We did a really banging QBR once, and then we either never did it, we never followed up, we didn't stick with the process, or when we did it, we brought things to the client who were too technical, or that didn't really add value. And I would almost guarantee, for those of you who are saying, you know, my clients don't see the value in it, if you've done one, you haven't asked at the end whether they saw value. And if you did ask that and you got the feedback that this isn't valuable to me, The next best question is, what can I do better or different to show you the value? And I think you'll find that the more technical stuff you strip out of it, the better the reaction will be from the customer.
And Alex, if you mind, if I want to throw something out here,
Sure.
I think a lot of times as business owners, we are focused on quality. We want to only deliver the best thing to our client. And when you think about, a strategic selling process, or you think about the QBR process, we want it to be right, to look good. And, I think a lot of times one thing that impedes us from doing that is, I believe it's OCPD, which is obsessive compulsive perfectionist disorder,
That's a
where
good one.
we want it to be beautiful. We want it to be good. But if we can't make it look good and pretty, it impedes us and we just don't do it. So what really caught my attention about the platform is it gives you the ability to put something together that flows good, but also looks damn good, if you don't mind me saying. It looks really good to the client, and it sets you apart from the competition. And I think one of the most important things is when you do deliver, high quality deliverables to your client, they take it more seriously.
They do. And I would say, that was one of my biggest challenges as we got started with this. When we first started, I had a little bit of that letting perfect be the enemy of good, right? I wanted every one of these reports to be perfect. And I would make them manually, and I would do exports from Automate, and exports from Manage, and exports from Warranty Master, and exports from all these other tools, and then cobble together my own spreadsheets, and then go recolor them and code them and do all this work manually. And I remember it taking 4 and 5 hours to do just the prep work behind a QBR. And as we got started, we even heard an MSP tell us that it took them 8 hours to prep a QBR for their most valuable customer.
Wow.
And they did it every quarter because the customer was that valuable. I mean, it was a 5-figure a month customer.
Right.
Now we can do these same reports in less than 30 minutes. So the platform helps, right? There's no doubt. It is the shortcut. But there's nothing we do in the platform that you can't do manually. So, as much as I'd like to have everybody on this call as a customer, I'd also like everybody on this call to take something away. And if it's nothing other than I need my own process, I need to streamline my own way to do this, to get on board and to start doing it again, or start doing it from zero. It's incredibly important that we actually have a defined process that is, when I do a QBR, I'm going to bring these 5 reports, and I'm going to present this type of information to my customer, and I'm going to go through this assessment and score my customers in a fairly standard way, so that 1, I get used to presenting it, and 2, it's much easier once I have that all really dialed in and right, to go to my techs and say, Mr. Engineer, this is what it's like for a customer to be a customer of us. These are the services we expect them to consume. This is what it looks like from the day they onboard to the cycle of continued improvement to the day that they maybe one day leave us. But this is what the customer engagement cycle looks like. And if you don't know it, you can't go out and tell it to a customer. And if you haven't really, if you're changing every day to go with the latest and greatest, best shiny thing, you don't have a real customer life cycle. You don't have a real customer experience model to be able to go out and put in front of a customer and say, we've fixed customers with similar problems to yours, and we've done it with solutions like this, right? And that's one of the things that I think is super important, is knowing who you are and knowing who your customers are, and what your proven process looks like to fix a problem.
So Alex, Keith put in the chat, to parlay on what Dan was saying, to be honest, when dealing with many layers of management, most will not read the report. So I'm concerned about optics and marketing value.
Sure. To speak to that, Keith, I'll be honest, the more times we do a QBR with a customer, the less of it they read. It makes a great leave behind, and there's a lot of facts and a lot of data in there. But a customer who's been doing this cycle with us for multiple quarters on end, we cover just a few pages in it. We cover the things that are in red. As less and less of it is read, more and more of it goes untouched. But there is a lot of good optics in putting this out there and saying, hey, Mr. Customer, this is the kind of thing that we're looking out for you. You don't really need to pay too much attention to the first 20 pages, but we're going to look at the back pages that show you the problems and the resolutions for this. So I'm not sure I understand the concern about optics, other than, my optics would be the concern of if I'm not doing it and somebody else is standing in front of my customer going, is your IT guy doing this for you? Because that's actually part of the sales process, right? Is your, if you work with us as an MSP, we're going to do this with you quarterly or semi-annually. If I'm sitting there telling someone that and they're seeing value in it and their current guy's not doing it, they're throwing that guy out the window.
He said the concern is the professional presentation. Is it pretty as well?
And that matters a lot, right? Getting this right, getting this pretty is one of the hardest parts, especially when we're very technical people and we don't necessarily have the artistic function of a lot of the marketing folks who are good at making things pretty. It is a challenge to do it yourself, and that's one of the values that a platform brings.
So, Alex, just one thought I had is you mentioned how you can pull this together very quickly, and and when you talked about the amount of time it takes to pull all the different reports together from the different platforms that we have, ultimately, it's very fragmented, right? And so it's not a cohesive, nice flow type of document. Could you possibly show us how quick it is to be able to pull that report up?
Yeah. I'll pull up a couple of reports here for you, but I also want to put it out there. We are going to do, for anybody who's interested in a deeper dive, we're going to do a full demo on Friday to give everybody a full demo of the product. We'll give you a link a little bit later, and it'll be followed with a coupon code as well. So we will give you some of that, but I'll throw the product up here. Can you guys see that on the screen?
Yep, you're good.
So this is our traditional dashboard. This is what, and I'm logged in under the wrong user. So let's fix that. There we go. So this is the dashboard.
For a password manager, it would take you all afternoon just to type in whatever that password was.
That nerds in their passwords, right? So this is what the dashboard looks like when you get into the platform. It gives me some really basic info, but one of the keys to it is data health. I know if my data quality scoring is poor, I'm going to have bad reports for my customers. If I go to a client who has a better data quality score, obviously their reporting is going to be more complete. But doesn't matter what customer I pick, I can go right to an asset list, and if I want to show my customer everything that, let's say I just want to give them a critical report and show them the operating systems that are end of life. Or if I want to give them a full report that shows all of the assets that they own, it's as easy as going in here and dialing up the report and spitting it out, because we're leveraging the API for either ConnectWise or Autotask or one of these other platforms, so that we already have your data. We have it live. We're updating it every night. We're scrubbing it for duplicates. We're doing some things that are just not happening in other platforms, and certainly aren't happening without a platform. So that once we print that report, it literally is that long, just seconds, for me to print a report for a customer that shows all of their assets and the status of their assets. And of course, the cleaner the data set, the fewer blanks that you're going to have. So what we find is that when most folks onboard with us, they spend the majority of their onboarding time just to get their data cleaned up, because ConnectWise or IT Glue or SolarWinds, none of those tools really give you any insight into the quality of the data that you're putting into them. So this is just one report. We bring about 5 reports into a QBR. We'll bring an asset list. We will bring a user list. We'll bring a budget forecast. We may bring some project information from our projects module. Sometimes we bring a contracts report that shows them what contracts they have and what things that we want to tack into the budget. And then, of course, we bring a full-on assessment. So each of those might take 5 minutes to print. The assessment is the hard part. And if you haven't done an assessment for the client, or you're not familiar with their environment, that can take you 10, 15 minutes, but the rest of those reports are just, bang, bang, bang. You can log into the system and print them out.
One thing I was say is when Keith was mentioning about is it pretty, I remember going, I'm going to date myself a little bit here, but back 2006 timeframe, when I was looking for our first RMM tool, um, one application we're using or we're looking at was very functional, but it wasn't pretty. Another app we were looking at was very pretty, but not functional. So, visually, we're all into nice visuals because it's easier to work with, right? And I remember saying to the rep when I said, "Well, it's not very pretty," and he's like, "Well, do you want to be functional or do you want it to be pretty?" And I'm like, "I want it to be both."
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's the critical thing is, we want something to be very functional so that we can deliver the data that's critical in helping the client make decisions. But we also want it to look good so that as they look at it, it's appealing and they have that good feel about the information.
Well, look, we spent a lot of time on data quality. We've also spent a lot of time dialing in these reports because each of these things matter, right? We're in an industry where if the bad guy is the cyber terrorist only has to be right once. The IT guy has to be right 100% of the time. We're in a business where we have to be right. So our data not only has to be right, but it has to look professional. Our reputation is that we're professional, we have a system, we have a process, and that proven process works. So it's about making it pretty because that's their thought of you. It's the same as coming poorly dressed to an interview, right? They think that you're sloppy, they think that you're not doing a good job, they think that you're going to miss something else because you wore mismatching socks or whatever. We don't want our reports to be mismatching socks.
So
Absolutely.
Alex, Keith asked, is your assessment, is it our assessment or third party that they need to add to the stack? So do you want to talk a little bit about what the assessment module can do and what assessments we have in the platform, what they can build?
So the assessments module is based on templates. We have a chunk of them in the platform where you can download them yourself, or we have the ability for you to take an assessment that we gave you and literally just build on it. So when you get into the assessments piece, it's literally just a matter of running an assessment event for a customer. That's a bad example. Let's use this one. You can literally just run through a series of questions, but you can edit the categories that these fall into. So these roll up into different categories. You can edit the categories and you can edit the questions. You can delete, you can remove, you can add, you can build your own. We've worked with a lot of customers to import things that came from from spreadsheets that they had been doing manually and things like that. So you can customize this to your heart's content. We give you what we think is a good starting point, but I know that Keith is going to use a different antivirus than me, and he may have a different firewall religion than me. I don't believe that any of that should hinder how our assessments work. So we use everything from some fairly industry standard ones like the IRS Form 457 or 4557. We have a NIST assessment that we've pulled in down to your custom. I have a mini policies and procedures assessment that just says, hey, these are 13 policies and procedures that we think every customer should have in place. Annually, we can run a quick mini assessment with them and say, hey, you know what? You need to have an electronic funds transfer policy in your organization, or somebody's going to walk out with a wire transfer to a foreign country. So we give you the ability to customize it to your heart's content. So I think we can move on to another question here. If you guys were to work through this, where do you see the biggest need in your organization? Because we're rather interested to see, as you dial up this process, who's the biggest winner when you do this? We wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about how leadership teams can take advantage of this. One of the things that you can see as a leader in the organization is where your biggest opportunities live, right? If we're sitting here staring at an assessment that shows me this customer's way out of alignment with my stack, and they've got $13,000 in technology debt, I know I can tack a project on top of that. This may be a $20,000 chunk of change that I can go pull out of an existing client tomorrow as revenues start to dip when we get into COVID. Our leadership team should be directing our salespeople and our account management team to go out and hit up those customers who have the most value or who have the most opportunity at risk out in their portfolio. So I think it's just interesting to think about this from a perspective not just of how this works with account management, but if you're really getting your organization dialed in, if you're one of the MSPs who's following traction, or if you're one of the MSPs who has a really mature leadership team who's out there trying to direct the sales and account management teams, these assessments and the results of them can be really valuable all the way up the ladder. So with that, I want to ask you guys the same question that we ask everybody else. Did we provide value to you today? And if not, what could we do better, or what could we do different? And I'd love to hear it. So feel free to drop that in chat while we're wrapping up. The last couple things that we want to make sure that you have access to, Marnie already pasted the bit.ly link into chat. This Friday at 3 p.m. We're going to be doing a deep dive into the platform. So we'll do a group deep dive for the Everything MSP group. We also have a coupon code. So if you decide that this is something that you're interested in, we'll give you $50 off every month for your first 3 months. That is good for any and all of our pricing plans. So at our cheapest plan, that gives you 5 customers for 3 months for $15 a month.
So we got a 1, it was valuable. Got a thank you.
Thank you for coming.
So yeah, if there's something specific that you would like to see, please do let us know.
We were going to step into a Q&A, but I'll leave this up just in case anybody wants to steal the coupon code or anything like that. But do we have additional questions to follow up with?
Alan already signed up for the full demo, so he's already registered for Friday. Perfect.
And also, I'd like to wish Alan a happy anniversary. I saw on Facebook earlier, it's his anniversary today, he and his wife.
And Alan, you can't hide from anything these days, can you?
And he got her a new air conditioner.
I got called out for my COVID haircut, and you get called out for your air conditioner, and nothing's safe.
So Keith said, I think it'll make us rethink our strategy of delivering data to our clients.
Yeah, you know, I agree with that, Keith. I think it's really easy for us to we get excited about the nerdy stuff, right? And our clients just don't. If you can get them to sit down with you and establish that, hey, look, you know, a PC's good. Everybody understands technology doesn't age well. It's like that high school girlfriend. It just doesn't age well. And so if we can sit down with our clients and have that conversation and say, you and I both know that a 5-year-old computer doesn't run as well as a brand new computer. Let's do this silly little math problem and say every 5-year-old computer in your organization costs you 10 hours a week or 10 minutes a week. And that's 200 minutes a year. And what is that? 10 minutes a week, 500 minutes a year. And that turns into this many dollars. If you can just walk through that simple little process, people will start to see the value in replacing technology, and they won't even care whether it had an SSD drive or not. They won't care if it had 2 more years of operating system support. They'll be doing it because they're bought into the process of lifecycle management, or they're bought into your proven process, which is helping them streamline and continue to improve the technology of their business.
Alex, now you have to apologize to Doug because he.
Oh, sorry, Doug. I meant your junior high girlfriend.
Oh, he said just kidding. All right, so you haven't hurt anybody's feelings.
Anybody else? Well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out today. It was this was a new slide deck for us, so it was interesting and always good to get some feedback on it.
And also, too, I just want to clarify one thing. The offer that you guys have here, I misunderstood. I thought it was $50 off the first 3 months, but it's actually $50 off each month for the first 3 months, right? So,
correct.
Yeah, that's outstanding. Thank you very much for that offer, because you know, I like to say I don't just eat our dog food, but I don't just sell our dog food, but I eat it too. Had a little mixed up there, but we became just recently became a partner of Lifecycle Insights, and the biggest reason is just because exactly what the platform does of simplifying the process for putting QBRs together. You know, when I take a look at the amount of time that it's taken us in the past, and we've been doing this for a long time, that's a lot of hours that could have been redirected to driving new sales, doing things that are much more productive than sitting in front of a screen through different applications and printing things and merging them and all that goes along with it when you don't have a platform like this. So I definitely encourage everybody to take the opportunity to register for Friday's demo, 3 o'clock Eastern time. So of course you got that link there. And again, thank you to Alex and Marnie for the very gracious offer of that $50 a month off for the first 3 months. That's awesome.
And Dan, if you don't mind, I'd like to hang out just long enough to answer Keith's question.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I confirmed with him. As far as this goes, what he meant to type was pre-sales. So as this goes to pre-sales or selling of new customers, I think the concept is that when you get into the platform, you're going to be missing a few things, right? So for a pre-sales customer, you're not going to have an asset list. You're not going to have a user list. But what you are going to have is some information from your network detective that tells you that when you go to do an assessment for this customer, you're going to be able to go in here and say, where it comes to workstations, well, I looked at their workstations and while I was there, and I can safely say that their workstations are at risk. Some of the workstations are end of life or have warranties that are expired or whatever. I can do the same for servers and say, hey, I saw an asset there that is a server, but it was a Dell PowerEdge 2900. I know it's as old as my oldest t-shirt. I need to get that thing replaced. I can go in there and say, hey, you know what? I saw a firewall there that is a consumer grade Netgear Nighthawk that was sold to them by Best Buy. So I can mark that as red and come back to it with a recommendation to replace. So we don't use as many reports in pre-sales, but we do give them an idea of what these reports might look like. We'll sit down and talk to them and say, if you were a customer, not only will we be revisiting this process, but we're revisiting it with additional information that we've learned over being your MSP for years or for a year or however long. And we're going to bring you additional information that can flow into budget forecasts and these other tools. So we translate a lot of, I call that the known, right? The stuff that the MSP has magical access to thanks to all of our thousands of dollars in remote management and monitoring and documentation tools. The known comes from somewhere else when you're pulling it from Network Detective or when you're pulling it from a manual walkthrough or one of your other tools.
That's excellent. Any other final questions that we have to answer, or are we good there?
I think we've covered them all.
Awesome. Alex, excellent job educating us about the process of dialing in our process, I should say, and to drive up sales. Everybody, I want to thank you for attending today's event. Thank Alex and Marnie for being here with us today and educating us. Keep in mind Friday's event. If you haven't signed up, please register for the Friday demo and be sure to use that coupon code so you can take advantage of that discount. So with that being said, everybody have a great day and we will talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate everybody's time today.